Thank you for joining us today for our seminar in the Journey to Science series at Onondaga Community College. This seminar is sponsored by the Bridges to Baccalaureate grant. Today, we are welcoming McKenzie Swart. McKenzie graduated from OCC with a degree in liberal arts and then transferred to Smith College in Massachusetts, where she's currently finishing her senior year as an Ada Comstock scholar. After completing her bachelor's degree with a degree in biology and a minor in landscape studies, McKenzie plans to work in public horticulture. McKenzie currently works at the Botanic Garden at Smith College, and even though she never planned to pursue a bachelor's degree, she has thrived at Smith. As you're watching, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button at the top, and you can submit your questions at any time, and we will cover them at the end. Thank you very much for sharing your time and your story with us. Welcome, McKenzie.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Lacey. That was so sweet. And thank you all for coming. I'm really honored and flattered to be asked to be here to talk to you guys and talk about my roots with you. And a lot of them really got going at OCC. And so I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to share how much that experience meant to me with everyone here. I really want to talk a lot about how my journey has been full of pivots and full of, as one of my favorite mentors described, cautious optimism, because I think that that's a way of moving forward through life that doesn't necessarily design your life for you, but can help you open doors that you might not have otherwise opened for yourself, just by embracing the opportunity. So I'm a local to that area of New York. I grew up in Fulton, and I really didn't have a lot going for me when I was in high school. I was just your average B student, kind of floating through my time there. And I didn't really know where I wanted to go. For a while, I was interested in mortuary sciences. My mom watched a lot of crime TV when I was a kid. And then as I got older, I kind of leaned more into my personal interests, which were more art-based, more fine art-based. And when I graduated from high school, I chose a school that was as far away from home as I could kind of comprehend in the realm of feasibility for myself. And that was Monroe Community College in Rochester, New York. It's about 2 hours west. And so obviously, most of you guys know that. So when I got there, I was majoring in fine arts, and I really felt like I was connected to that work, but I wasn't connected to anything else there. I was just sort of constructing this person who I thought I wanted to be, because I'd spent so much of my high school years kind of floating through social pressures and not knowing what direction I really wanted to grab a hold of for my life. And so when I got to Monroe, I was kind of like lost in the weeds. I was going to these art classes and performing really well, but then I would go to a math class and I would just tank and goof off and just wasn't invested at all in that process. And so I eventually, through working through Monroe's kind of curriculum, I realized that fine arts wasn't exactly for me, because while I loved doing it, I didn't want to make a go of it as my life. And I was feeling like I was not growing as the person. I went to college thinking I was just going to become this version of myself that I wanted to be. And I kind of realized during that time that that doesn't come by acting a certain way or dressing a certain way or hanging out with certain people. It was more the choices that I was making in my day-to-day. Unfortunately, it took flunking out to realize that. So towards the end of my time, at the end of my 2-year span there, I failed. I had like a 1.7, like a really, really low GPA. And I was actually told that I couldn't return to Monroe unless I got my grades up. And so I said, well, then I guess I just won't return. I guess I'll just start my life. I started working these odd jobs, just random things. I mean, we all know what a retail job means in our area. It's like whatever dead-end version of a thing you want to think of, I was doing. I know I wanted to do something, obviously, career-wise, but I just didn't have any inspiration. And so I moved back in with my parents, and I went back to certain things that I hadn't realized were so important to me until I wasn't able to access them at Monroe. Most importantly, I got back into gardening. My parents live in a rural part of Fulton, and I grew up on a horse farm, actually. And so I had a lot of access to space. So I just started gardening again in a way that was more, I'll say, intelligent than I had been before. Before I'd just been throwing stuff in the ground and going, let's see what happens here. But now it was more like, I wonder what this irrigation system could look like. I wonder if I could build this myself. I wonder if I should do raised gardens over here. I just started thinking more critically about that part of my life and realizing that it was something I was really much more invested in than I had ever realized. And I was like, then I decided that I really had to start paying the bills, right? I was tired of living at my parents'. I felt like at this time I think I'm like maybe 21, 22 and feeling like I needed to do something with my life, really do something. And so that something was to get a job, like a real job, a 9-to-5. I became a data entry clerk at a local potato chip manufacturer who I will leave unnamed, but I think some of you might know the company I'm talking about. And unfortunately, I had a real serious learning experience at that place. I was faced with sexual harassment regularly. It was blatant. I mean, I was just in a working environment with blue collar, kind of scruffy men who weren't very interested in politeness, I'll say. And I was young and very inexperienced. And so I spent a year and a half grappling with, is this what it means to work? Is this what it means to be in an environment where I'm paying the bills and being an adult? Is this what it takes? And it was during that time that I realized, I'm much smarter than I think I am, because boy, being a data entry clerk sounds kind of boring and dumb, but it was a lot of like coordination and thinking critically about organization and working with numbers in a way that I had never really felt comfortable with. And so there were parts of it that were really wholesome for me, that I was learning how to manage some of these skills that I knew I would, need and value later. But it was coupled with this really gritty, uncomfortable, every day I was in a space that I was not feeling okay. And so I started to work really, really hard every morning when I got there so I could spend my afternoons just in my own little world. I wasn't directly supervised, so I could kind of, play that game a little. I started to daydream about what I really wanted for my future in a way that I had never given myself space to before. I was speaking to some of my colleagues here about framing my story, and it really, for me, I'm the type of person who doesn't make space for reflection unless I'm invited to it. And so I found myself creating my own invitation to daydream and to dream and to think critically about the things I wanted for myself, not just the things I thought I needed to do for myself and for my life, the things I wanted. And that really included gardening. At that time, I had spent a few years, I'm like 23, 24, I think about closer to 20, 23, maybe younger. And I'm like, I really just want to garden. I just want to be outside. I want to be working with plants. I want to be potentially working with animals. I don't want to be in a building the rest of my life. And so I started to think about what that could be for a career. And I'll be honest, I hit a lot of dead ends. I was like, I don't really want to be a grunt my whole life. I don't want to be, digging holes and working for the city, cutting trees on the side of the road, forever. That wasn't the type of landscaping and outdoor work I wanted to do. I wanted to connect with people, and I wanted to share my experience and my love for what I was doing with people. And I wanted to talk to people who had that love as well and grow with them together. And at the time, my very, very good friend, Matt Schultz, was hiking the Appalachian Trail, which if anyone here is unfamiliar with, it's a trail that runs from a point in Georgia all the way up through Maine. It takes the entire, it's like whatever it is, March to September, October to complete. And I was so enraptured by this idea of giving up your whole life to spend 6-8 months hiking. And I really had a lot of respect and admiration for my friend for giving up his life. He was also a college dropout, also didn't know what he was doing. And he chose to go hike this trail. And on this journey, he would call us, and me and our friend group would talk. And one of the most exciting things that he kind of brought back from that experience was that he would stop at these regular places on the trail that were like hostels that would host hikers so that they could get a hot meal. Maybe they received mail for them. Maybe they had a more sheltered place for them to sleep. And something clicked in me that was kind of what I needed. I wanted to provide, I wanted to host, I wanted to be an access point for people, and I wanted to garden. I wanted to have a permaculture space of my own where I could develop the lifestyle that had just been a dream. And so I continued to give that a lot of thought and say, how could I go about this? How could I construct that reality for myself? Because it seems so huge to say, I want to go and build a home on a mountain somewhere and start gardening, and hopefully people will just show up and want to join me. So I put together some pieces like, well, if I wanted to do it, it'd have to be in one of these states. And if I wanted to do it, maybe I would start by living in a trailer on a piece of land that I buy. And then I would build it up really slowly and then maybe invite people to help me build. And it just became this sort of like stacking of ideas that grew and grew from this really tender place inside of me that only wanted to flourish, that wanted to grow in a safe way, in a way that felt like it was something that was fulfilling and wholesome in my perspective, right? Because this is a time where I'm transitioning away from other people's perspectives. I spent a lot of time at Monroe pretending to be something I wasn't. I did a lot of things that I enjoyed, and I picked up some hobbies like longboarding that I've never abandoned, but I also, had this perception that I needed to be what other people needed me to be. And I was finally pivoting away from that, which is a big part of what I do in my life. Fortunately, is pivot. I roll with punches pretty easily. And this was something that I felt like I could grab onto and run with. This idea of this bed and breakfast, this permaculture facility, this ecotourism locale on the Appalachian Trail. But it still seemed really huge. It still seemed like this unachievable fantasy. And I started to come to the conclusion that I was never going to achieve it if I continued on the road I was on at this manufacturer. And so I set a goal for myself. I said, I'm going to stick this out until the end of the fiscal year, because I liked one of the people I was working with. I liked my office manager, and she just did 75% of the work for that company. And I said, I'm going to do her a solid. I'm going to stick this out until her books are nice, and then I'm going to cruise. And so I did that. And I felt really good when I did that, because up until this point as well, I'd been sort of working odd jobs. And I think a lot of you can relate that when you work an odd, crappy job that you're not invested in, especially if it's like retail or just anything like that, you kind of can come and go from it really easily. And this was something I was like proud that I had stuck out, as awful as it was. I mean, looking back, it's a little bit of probably not survivor's guilt, but some amalgamation of feelings where I was like, forcing myself through it. But I think it made me stronger, and it certainly helped me with some, I'll say, office skills that I would need later in my life. It also really helped me to learn what it took for me to be a professional in space. I think that was something I was really out of touch with, particularly at Monroe. At Monroe, at my first college, I was making all these connections with professors that really were inspired by me and really thought that I had what it took to achieve things. And I let those relationships fall by the wayside because I wasn't really mature enough or professional enough to recognize the value in those relationships. And so when I came out of Terrell's, I had this new sort of fearlessness about me. I knew what I wanted, and I knew that the way to achieve it was through education, because I saw my own family lacking that. I saw my community lacking that. And I saw my opportunities lacking because of that. So I decided to go back to school, and OCC is about a 40-minute commute from my home, which was a lot. But I'm really glad that I decided to do that, because I had so many formative experiences at OCC that pushed me to be so much more well-rounded than I ever thought I could be, which is another major part of my journey. Is like, I really never knew what I didn't know. And I think some people are better at inferring things like that, than I am. But I'm really, I'm one of these people that when you take a veil away, it's like a whole new world is in front of me. And so at OCC, I had so many veils removed where I didn't even know I was feeling less than in the sciences. I didn't know that I was intimidated by the idea of statistics. But when I came to OCC, I began to feel like this was a community where I could stand up and speak. maybe a little bit too often. I remember being in a certain political science class and having particular eye contact with my professor, and I remember being like, no, he doesn't want me to answer this one. He really wants me to stick this one out. But I would still kind of half raise my hand, like, I'm here if you need me, like, I'm ready to talk. I was always ready to talk, always ready to answer a question. And I realized that that was really unique, and it was a way of achieving things in classes and in school that I had never been able to achieve before. I've never been able to just have a conversation with a professor in front of the class of students to go, well, this is what I read from the material, and the professor going, well, I don't really agree, and me going, but it's right here. And not to say that happened all the time, but there was, those were moments that I look back on and cherish, because they were learning moments for me, where I really took the reins of my own education, and I said, wait, I want to stop here. Like, I want to look at this. I want your opinion on this. And the more I started to do that, the more I felt like I was in control of what I could achieve and what I could put down on paper as a goal. And those goals started to get bigger. At one point, one of the most important experiences I had at OCC, I went up, I was just walking around Fronte Hall, just killing time. And up on the 3rd floor, if you haven't ever been there, there's a little greenhouse. And I looked in, and it was like just a mess. It was just like covered in stuff. It had like plants kind of going on somewhere, and then like someone's house plants were in the corner, and there were like aquariums. And long story short, I dabbled in fish keeping for a while, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they would want some donations. I've got some old stuff, like I don't really need it. And so I went and sought out the professor at the time I had the closest relationship to, who was Brian McInich. And I said, Brian, what the heck's going on over here in this greenhouse? Like, I want in, and I want to know what's going on, and I want to donate some stuff. Like, I got junk I got to get rid of. And he goes, oh, I don't know. He was like, I don't know. But you know who's in charge of it now? All of a sudden, the new guy on the block is Justin Feeney. Let's go talk to him. Let's go see if he's in his office. And I'm like, okay, not thinking it's going to go from A to Z this fast, but I'm like, okay. So I follow Brian down, and he knocks on Justin's door, and Justin comes out, and my first impression of Justin Feeney was that he was the most athletic dork I had ever seen in my life, but he was the coolest, nicest guy right off the bat, just very, very like easygoing and excited to chat about things. And I found Brian eventually like wandered away, but we were like, what could we do? Justin was like, I don't know what's going on, but I want to do something. Like, let's talk about it. And so we had lots of conversations about like, what kind of research would this greenhouse be able to support? What kind of research are you interested in? And it was in those conversations that I felt myself realizing that I felt incapable of doing research. I was really intimidated by the idea. Research to me sounded like, what is that? Is that in a lab with like beakers and test tubes and stuff? Like, that wasn't who I wanted to be. That wasn't what I was interested in. I was really just trying to, get through. And Justin was like, no, it's none of that. It's something you're excited about. It's something you want to look more closely at. And so I thought, okay, well, I like plants, I like gardening, and we both like gardening. Justin is a huge garden, and we started to kind of collaborate on this idea of like, what could be beneficial for not only both of us to study, but that could go somewhere. And that was big too. Something in research that I did not know and that I'm still learning is that you are one link in a chain of knowledge that's growing all the time. And that's a very humbling but very powerful position to be in. And it really gave me a real sense of purpose once I kind of latched onto the idea of going somewhere with it. And so we developed this study around companion planting little edible microgreen plant species to see if their flavor profiles would impact each other based on how their proximity and which species they were. I ate so many, oh my God, I ate so many radish sprouts. It's crazy. But eventually it snowballed into this incredible storyline where Justin was like, I think we really have something. I think this is really meaningful research. And we had tied it into the culinary program at OCC as well. And so I was taking these greens, I was growing them, I was measuring their weight, their heights, I was doing all the statistical analyses on them. And then I was taking them to the culinary program at OCC and I was saying, what do you guys think? Like, how spicy are these? Are these less spicy? Like, what's their color like? How would you use them? And we ended up collecting this really diverse collection of information about these plants that was so amazing. Like at the beginning, I had never even realized I didn't know what it could be. I didn't know that posters were a thing. You know, I thought a poster was like a thing you put on your wall. Like a scientific poster blew my mind when I first saw it, because I was like, how can you put all of that into that? Like, how does that work? And so Justin helped me through that process. And I remember picking colors for it, going, oh my God, this is my poster. Like, I'm so excited about this poster. And I took it to a conference and presented on it, which was amazing, because I could not have done that without the support of President Crable, who I met with and who encouraged me to pursue the idea, and I met with her to get funding, and just basically have a conversation about where I was going in life. And her letter of recommendation ended up being an extremely special thing to me that really empowered me later, rereading it and just feeling really connected to the things she felt about me, the capabilities I had. And so this whole research journey that I'd had was something that I definitely didn't realize going into OCC was even something available to me. I went in thinking, I'm just going to get my liberal arts degree. I'm just going to get this piece of paper, as my mom said. I'm just going to get the piece of paper, and then I'm going to go back to the life in a better way than I had been before. But while I was there, I started to feel like I wanted even more than that. And I couldn't have known before, so it took going to OCC to realize that there even was more. I did a lot of things that felt like I was important, and that made me feel like I could go further with that. I became the president of the OCC Geology Club, which was something. I mean, talk about learning how to be a professional. During my pitch speech for that to become president, I swore more times than I would like to admit. You know, it's like the anxiety still got to me, but I was becoming the person I wanted to be without projecting that onto the world around me. I was becoming that because I believed in myself that I was able to be that. I was able to stand on my own 2 feet and understand higher level research and math and statistics and analytical breakdowns of things that I had never put 2 and 2 together on before. So that was kind of my experience at OCC in a nutshell, just really recognizing in myself that I had the capacity. But what was most important, I think, in that time was having someone who really believed in me and who was in my corner. Over the course of that research project, I connected with Justin Feeney in a way that I think I needed. And not even just academically, but spiritually as well. I mean, there was not a work day that went by where he didn't say goodbye with a high five and a "you did good today," like good job, killer, like you're really knocking it out of the park. Like, he was always there for me. He was always in my corner. And I don't come from a family that's necessarily unsupportive, but I had never had someone in a sphere like this validating me and looking at me and saying, you're capable. And so I was really empowered by that. And I learned then and felt connected to then the idea that a mentor was more than someone who could show you what you were, you know, where you could go, but it was someone who could make you feel like you were able to do that on your own, you know, and not lead you there. And I really look back on that time and feel like if I hadn't met Justin and done that research, that I wouldn't be the person I am, academically notwithstanding, but the person who believes that, you know, I'm capable and that, you know, every little bit counts is really important to me. And it was really pivotal moving forward in my life too, because when I left OCC, when I graduated, I'll never forget graduating. God forbid, it's probably going to be the only graduation I'm ever going to get, because Smith is surely not going to do nothing for me. But it's probably all going to be virtual from here on out. But graduating from OCC was really, really like a moment of extreme pride for me. And I took that and sort of wrote it for a while. I was like, I don't know if I really want to get back in the workforce. I really don't want to go to grad school, but like my associate's degree, like what does that mean? What have I spent so much time achieving? And so I went kind of back into the working world, but I went back in a way that was controlled. I knew that there was more on the table, but I didn't think that I would be able to just jump right into the next phase of this plan, right? So the Appalachian Trail dream is still there, but I know that I can't just walk up to it and take it. I knew there was some in between steps, so I thought, you know, maybe I'll just lay low, find some work, find a good paying career that is advantageous to me right now, and I'll build up money, and I'll work low level, and I'll just do that later. And I kind of was going to table my experience, right? I was going to take all the things that I had grown and now stood on top of from OCC, and I was going to say, that's great. and now I'm beyond that, and now I'm back to this. But something happened to make me realize that your momentum is really important, and that was a wedding that happened. A good friend of mine got married, and it just so happened that her aunt is the president here at Smith College. And she had heard about my journey at OCC, about how I had returned from the working community to go to OCC to complete my associate's degree, and about my interests and my passions. And she came to the wedding prepared with some materials, and she was like, I think you'd be a great candidate for this program that we have called the Ada Comstock Scholars Program, and you should look into it. And I was like, okay, whatever, fine. Like, sure, you're just, out here giving me propaganda, like it's cool. But the more I looked into it, the more I thought that actually it was something I could do, and it was something that maybe would be the right opportunity for me. Because a huge part of not wanting to go forward with school, which I think probably a lot of you can relate to, is that I didn't want to pay for it. I was like, I just want to start my life. I don't want to keep paying some institution money to, sit in a class and learn about a thing that maybe I could figure out on my own. Research opportunities notwithstanding, everything else. At this time, I'm still a muddy mess about where I'm going forward with things. But so I learned about this program, and at the time I was still attending classes at my local, at CCC, at Cayuga Community College, the one in Fulton, because I was like not quite willing to give up the school atmosphere yet. I think the older I got, the more attached I got to the routine of it, and not having to build that routine for myself. So I a little selfishly was like, well, let me just take a few business classes. That might help me somewhere. And so I was in business classes when I was starting to really, really refine this idea of going forward to finish my bachelor's degree. And this program at Smith is actually, if anyone's listening, that's a young woman identifying a person at the age or over the age of 24, the Ada Comstock Scholar Program is for women who want to return to college to complete a degree that they left college for whatever reason and could not prior. The program was started in like the 70s to recoup the losses of housewives from leaving Smith and starting their lives. And so they kind of built this program to be like, hey, come back, we want you to finish. And over time, it's sort of morphed into this amazing place where a hugely diverse group of women identifying individuals come together and say, this is my story of oppression, this is my story of abuse, or this is my story of empowerment. And they come to Smith and they say, I'm going to be a clinical psychologist, and Smith gives them all the tools for that. And actually it's a fully funded scholarship program. So once I discovered it was fully funded, I was like, okay, maybe this is an opportunity that I could be lined up for. But they only take about 100 women every year out of the couple of hundred or so that apply. And so I was like, I'm not going to put all my eggs in this basket, but it's kind of the only basket I have going right now. So I'm going to try. And trying and starting on that foot with Smith and saying, I just want to try, was really what got me snowballing into a good place with Smith's opportunities. I went into everything Smith gave me by saying, I want to try. I just want to try. I want to give it a shot. What could go wrong? Because at this point, I'd also taught myself, like, there's no class I can't accomplish if I don't just pay attention on the first day. No professor's ever going to start me on the first day with something I don't understand, unless it's like, God forbid, like biochemistry or some insane thing. But I wasn't in any of those classes, so I could say, start at the start, I'm going to be okay, pretty confidently every time. So I came in with that mentality, like, I want to try, I'm just going to start at the start. And then I got waitlisted, so I didn't even get in my first try. And I was like really kind of, down about that and thinking this could be it. Like, this could be my answer. I tried to reapply and I couldn't. The program was like not working for me. And so I emailed the dean at the time and she was like, oh, don't worry, I just pushed your old application through. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get in. I got waitlisted on that application. Like, there's no way. And then a couple weeks go by, a couple months go by, and I got a letter in the mail, and it was my acceptance letter to matriculate in the fall. And up in the top right corner, someone had written in pen, "Second time's the charm." And that will always stay with me as something where it's another one of those moments where someone looked at me on paper this time, but looked at me and said, this good job, you kept trying, like, good job. And that's something that I'll always value, is someone looking at me and going, good job, because that's really important. And I have an ADHD brain, so I really need rewards. So rewards are important to me. And I kind of just rolled with it. I really did not, I never, until I got that letter, was invested in the idea I was going to go. I was just going to keep on however I was going to keep on. And when I got to Smith, I really didn't like it here. I felt catfished by my program. I told them I wanted to do all of these permaculture, gardening, skills-based activities with my life. And they said, yeah, come, we have a botanic garden, we have a horticulture class, and blah, blah, blah. And then I got here and I was like, oh, I'm going to exhaust all of these resources in my first year. Like, they don't go further than this level. So I really struggled with trying to find my footing in this new place, 4 hours away from home, feeling like I didn't have any friends or family near me, and feeling like I couldn't just go home if I wanted to. It was a hell of a drive. And so, you know, I was kind of on my own. For the first time in a long time, I was really on my own. And so I threw myself into anything that was close to what I loved, which was gardening. I held onto that thread of my own interest, my own passion really tightly. And what I found was that by doing that, I found my people here at Smith. I found the flock that I belonged with, and it was a bunch of dirty people who just wanted to dig in the dirt, and who Smith was constantly yelling at to stop digging in the dirt because there's no credits for that. And I really felt like I belonged for the first time in a long time when I found these other people who were like, I really want to garden, I really want to landscape, I want to be a part of the thoughtful process that goes into an ecological, natively planted space that serves its community, that doesn't just beautify it, that doesn't consume it with something that's this anthropocentric concept of what a garden should look like. You know, we wanted to build environments together. And I had a mentor discover me at that time. Her name is Gabby. She's a local hero, really. She's a crazy person who runs like everything and anything to do with native plants around here and landscaping. And she kind of took me under her wing and said, do you want to work? Do you want to do something? Because I can give you something, but you got to want to do it. And I kind of never really faltered. I was always like, yeah, I want to do something, even when I didn't feel like I didn't belong here. I wanted to do something. And I think that's been a huge part of the key to my success, is that I've always just wanted to do something. You know, I'm not the type who likes to be idle. And even if, you know, God forbid I watch TV all the time and sit and veg, like, don't get me wrong, but in life, you know, and I think that having a positive and optimistically positive can-do attitude really served me in many ways. Because there's a real difference between being excited for yourself and being like, I can do this just because I have the skills. Like, there's something about wanting it, right? That makes it easier. And so I felt myself wanting it more and more, wanting this life here, wanting to know more about how to do these opportunities. And I started to just be flooded with opportunities. As soon as I found my people, as soon as I found my niche, it was a rolling stone that I could not stop. I took an internship opportunity my first summer out here, and it was amazing. I mean, it was with this mentor, Gabby, that I had, and it was with a crew of like 6, 7 other students, diverse students who all came from different degree backgrounds, and we all just kind of weeded for a summer. And it would just go around campus weeding things. And it was then that I sort of locked into the idea that I can do public horticulture in a way that fulfills me, that is a career that's stable, that can get me on this path towards my eventual dream on the Appalachian Trail. And by working really hard in that, I found that I was noticed. And I think that that's a huge part of why I feel connected to these people here at Smith, that I feel like I wanted to connect with these people here, is because they wanted to connect with me. And looking back at Monroe, I can see that there were opportunities where my teachers wanted to connect with me there too. I don't think it's ever really the fault of the education system that students don't want to connect with it. But once you find that, you really find there's a lot of teachers and educators who want to connect with you and want you to succeed. And so I started to find these. I started to get scouted for things. My second internship after that during the year was with the Botanic Garden, focused on how we can get students into the tour program, because it's only led by elderly volunteers right now. And so how can we incorporate students into this program? You know, we're a school, so why aren't students involved? And then it kind of evolved from there, and I got scouted for another internship, and then another internship after there. And, you know, when your name becomes a part of a circle, especially a circle that you want it to be in, you can embrace it and you can really run with it. And so that's what I did. I ran out of classes that I enjoyed really fast, unfortunately. That's kind of the bummer about this place, is that it has a lot of opportunity, but it also has its own motivations, and its motivations are really to push people into a grad program, which I resisted and never wanted to do from the start. I mean, like, look at me, I didn't even want to be at Smith, and then they're like, oh, you want to go to grad school next? And I'm like, I really don't want anything to do with grad school. Like, I'm already going to be the most overeducated landscaper you've ever put out. Like, I don't really want to go to Columbia or Yale. Like, I don't have any need for that. They don't have anything for me, you know? Well, Harvard has a really amazing arboretum, but there's just not, it just wasn't what I wanted. And so I took my time at Smith and said, I'm just going to stay here as long as I can. They have some limitations on things. I said, I'm going to stay here as long as I can. And I really wanted to just embrace the diversity of things that were available to me at Smith. I mean, it's crazy. I took a class. They're a liberal arts institution, so they really encourage you to just go wherever you want in classes, even when you're within a degree field. And so one of the things I did was I took this incredible history class that was all about the juxtaposition of animals and children and how we interpret the abuses towards animals and how that can translate into marginalized societies. And it was very, very itchy, very tough topics to talk about. But the final project could be a creative outlet for just understanding these different materials that we were reading. And I invented a board game just for the class. I said, wouldn't it be cool if high school teachers could just have this board game where they busted it out and it had a ton of primary source documentation in it, and students could just like walk through it, you know, bit by bit, and they'd have to read something, and then have to experience something, and then have to figure something out, and then they'd have to read something. And so it snowballed. My professor was really excited about it, and she was like, I really think you should do something with this. Talk about opportunities. Smith has this crazy competition every year called the Draper Competition, and it's for entrepreneurship ventures that want to get off the ground. It's basically a startup competition. And so I entered it and I got in, and right before the world blew up, right before coronavirus became the end all be all, there was a pitch competition where you had to get up and give a 90-second pitch. I love this story because I feel like it's truly the definition of my time here, that I woke up that morning of the competition going, I'm not going to do it. Because I had just read the email for it last night, right? The night before. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. Like, there's going to be plenty more opportunities. The competition has like 18 different mini competitions within it. This was just one of them. I said, there's going to be lots of other ones, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of went through the morning and went through class and was like, oh, well, I guess I have a more open afternoon than I thought I did. I wonder what I would say if I were to give my pitch. I wonder what it would look like. And then before I knew it, I had my lunch with me on a set of stairs, like in some little corner somewhere. And I was like writing down stuff on a note card going, you know, this, and this. And I'm trying to look because the competition actually has like requirements for what you need to say. And I was like, I don't even know what I have to say. And I don't even, you know, I just have this idea. And I was dressed in like this. I was just dressed like a very normal person. Did not have time to go home first. And so I showed up to this competition. It's like 4 PM, and everybody's got a team. Everyone's in a blazer. Everyone's like ready to go. And I was like with my little scribbly note card, like, oh, shit. Like, I'm really out of my league. And then I saw over in the corner a professor that I really liked. His name's Dave. He was my invertebrates professor. Totally unrelated. I walk up and I'm like, Dave, what the heck are you doing here? He goes, oh, well, they asked me to be a judge for this thing. And, you know, now I'm judging for the thing. And it's just like a random pool that they select from every year for the competition. And I was like, oh, cool. So I just sat with Dave the whole time. I didn't have a team. I didn't have a mentor. I mean, everyone there was like in a group, right? And I had no group. So I was just hanging out with my professor Dave. And finally, they start calling up pitches. And everyone's going, and everyone's like, our idea is to start this app where kids can connect to local elderly folks, and they can do things like puzzles together in person. It's a way of connecting people socially, and amazing ideas, like technological ideas, just crazy. A lot of them were app-based, but just things that were like such high-level thinking than I had even space for. Hydroponic stuff, like just bananas. And then I was the last one to go, of course, God forbid. And so I'm the last one to go. So I get up there and I got my crumbly little note card and I kind of look out and I lock eyes with Dave and he gives me a thumbs up. And I was like, let's go. I just like went for it and I just started to talk. I just started to talk about my thing. And I didn't hit all the buttons that I needed to. Like I didn't talk about the economic outlet of the game. I didn't talk about, you know, like the financials involved or anything like that. So I went and I got flagged. I went over my time. They flagged me. So I was like, oh, thank you. I like left. And then, so they're blah, 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 they qualify everything and they start calling, they go, okay, it's time for the awards. And they're calling names, they're calling like honorable mention, they're calling this, that, and then they go, okay, here's third prize is this group. And I go, oh, there's no way I've even placed then because I didn't get third. And then they go, second place is this group. And I was like, oh, good for them. That was a good pitch. And then what's first place? Right here. I had won first dang place in a competition that 3 hours prior I was not going to compete in. Like, I really wasn't gonna go, you guys. Like, I was like, there's no way. And then I got there and I was like, I really shouldn't be here. There were so many flags. There were so many moments where if I had been 18, 19 again, and in my same shoes, I would have turned tail and ran. I would have said, I'm not ready, I'm not capable, I'm not good enough for this. And oh, I apologize, my landlord's phone ringing. And then I went up and won. And I think that is such a capstone in my Smith experience, that I had that opportunity not only to do this in a way that was recognized, but it was a thing that was totally outside of anything I'd ever planned to do at Smith. It was never anything I meant to follow, and it became something that was really special. And I won $1,000. It was a big deal. I was really proud of it. And then the next day the world ended. Like, everything was over after that. And so I was just like kind of left reeling, like, what now? What now? Like, what do we all do? And I think everyone was kind of in that frame of mind. But boy, that really, that was another real pivot point for me, where I was like, I am good enough. Like, I can show up. Just by showing up, even, it's enough. And if I put in that little extra amount of myself, then it's more than enough. And that's the place where I thrive, is when I'm performing higher than I need to be. And I think that's a personal standard, right, for everybody, but I really found that was something that made me feel whole, was to show up to the table and say, here's all my cards, check them out. Who's into it? Who wants to talk about it? And that has been huge for me, because people want to talk. Like, people want to meet you and hear your ideas and hear your story. This is a testament to that. Like, I never would have guessed that, but it comes with value. It comes with valuing yourself and valuing your voice and saying, my voice is worth hearing. And when I came to Smith, I had the opportunity to solidify that in myself and to really buy it from myself. I mean, my time at Smith has been just like constant opportunity, constantly being shown that there's chances around every corner that I wouldn't have turned the corner and found it. I would never have realized that I had the chance to put myself in those positions. You know, it's just crazy to me what happens when you just try. And that sounds so disingenuous to say, but trying is more than waking up and going, I'm gonna do my homework today. It's waking up and going to school and saying, I wanna be in a relationship with the people around me, and I want to learn from them, and because they have so much to offer. And I think everyone's kind of waiting for that opportunity to give you what they have to offer, especially in academia. I mean, it's like the right people anyway, right? Not everybody is going to be so conducive to these thought processes of being better, but I think for the most part, absolutely. I guess I kind of want to wrap up by saying that I'm in my final months here at Smith, and when I graduate this May, I'm actually lined up for another internship opportunity, a better one, the best one yet. I'm gonna get it pays really well, and it's with the curator of the outdoor landscape department, his name is John Berryhill, appropriately. He's doing his master's program here at Smith, and he's scouted me to come and help him do an assessment of an endangered magnolia species to see if Smith could be an appropriate refuge for the genetic diversity of the species. And it's going to be a really interesting, weird venture into conservation, which is really hot right now, but nothing I'm really that excited about. And but I'm excited about doing the work with him because he's a really knowledgeable person and he's so kind, and he just wants to share space with you and ask you questions and prompt you to learn more about the things that you're working on together. And that's really the type of space I try very hard to put myself in, is with people who are really passionate. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm moving forward with that. I'm starting my life out here. I've chosen to stay, and I think that says a lot about why this place was worth it for me to go, and why leaving your nest is kind of really important for stepping out into the world in a way that makes you feel better and gives you the intelligence you need to succeed in life. Because you just don't know what you don't know. Like, I guess that's my takeaway. Like, you need to put yourself places where you learn about people and other things, and have experiences that are maybe scary, but like, you can do it. Like, just do it. Just do it. It's all good. Just do it. That's my advice. So thank you all for listening to me talk. I really appreciate you spending time with me this afternoon. And oh my God, I'm just so tickled that I could be here. And if anyone ever wants to talk to me one-on-one, like, please email me. I'm sure that information will be available, but I have so much to say. You might be able to tell, but I could tell you everything. And, if you ever want to hear more, definitely hit me up. So thank you.
Thank you so very much, McKenzie. What a powerful story of perseverance and being willing, so willing to dive in and try new things. It makes me want to go out and do something. I have no idea what, but right, to do something, anything. So we have a couple questions here. The first one is relating to sort of your eventual career goal, which you mentioned was public horticulture. So the student is wondering what you define as public horticulture. And the follow-up to that question is if there are any dream projects and places where you would like to sort of realize that horticultural dream of yours.
Oh my God, such a good question. So public horticulture is basically botanic gardens, or I like to think of them as plant zoos, places where plants are accumulated in any amount and people can kind of come and engage with them. And, maybe it's like a tour, or, a lot of things can be public horticulture. Like here in Massachusetts, there's this place called Magic Wings, and it's actually a butterfly conservatory, but it's labeled as a botanic garden, public horticulture, because it's got like just a ton of plants in it. You go and you walk around, and things are usually labeled in public horticulture. So it's basically a way to access the more nuanced, knowledgeable areas of plant keeping in a way that you probably can't do in your home. Lots of going and seeing exotic tropical things that you just don't have access to, rare plants. Right now, our Botanic Garden is our public horticulture system. The Lyman Conservatory, which is our Botanic Garden, is working really hard on growing these things called corpse flowers. I'm struggling to remember the botanic name, but it's essentially the biggest flower that kind of exists. I think it's one of the biggest flowers that exists, and it emits this disgusting, odoriferous, nasty smell. And all it's designed to just attract bugs, prey items, and they're like phenomenal, huge. Like, people in horticulture, just their minds are blown when they see them, and so they're really rare. Usually, like a botanic garden will have one. Every couple of years it'll bloom, because it makes one leaf that's like 8 feet tall and as big as my body. Like, that's how it grows. And then after a few years of making that leaf, it makes a flower, and the flower opens, and it's like the most rancid dead body you've ever heard. And people go nuts for it in public horticulture. And so it's opportunities to engage with things like that, where you would just never, ever be exposed to it. And then I do have a dream of finding one particular one. I'm actually really well lined up for work in this organization called Native Plant Trust, and it's in Massachusetts here. It's one of the oldest institutions in the country that does a lot of work in capturing genetic information from wild seed stock and incorporating that into a retail space, so that they're making native plants accessible for homeowners and landscapers like me to be able to go into their space and say, I want to put this and this flowering thing, this green thing, this thing, and they can go to Nasami Farms, and someone there can say, here's some alternatives you might not have thought of or realize were available to you, but they're native to this environment, and we really think that it'd be powerful if you included them. And they have a lot of really amazing opportunities. They have a botanic garden. If you ever want to look up, Garden in the Woods is what it's called, and it's an entire botanic garden that's it's all designed around how you could plant your space with entirely native plants. And so you walk around, and it's like one area is like a little shed and then a field of plants. It's great. And so I would love to work there. They have a propagation internship actually that starts in March. So I was not qualified for it this year because of school, but next year I'm thinking that that's going to be what I go for. So yes, totally into that dream job.
Wow, I'll have to keep an eye out for this corpse flower to see if there's one anywhere around here because I need to smell it now.
They're crazy. They're crazy.
Now, another question. You came to OCC, you called yourself a college dropout when you started at OCC. We have a lot of those, right? I call them, second chance, returning students. I don't like to use the word dropout because they're here now, right?
Right.
If you got to sit down with one of those students, someone who just kind of signed up for classes because they felt stuck in their whatever job they were in, what would you tell them?
Oh, wow. I guess it would depend, right? Like, what would I tell them? Well, first of all, I would tell them I know how it feels to feel like you're in a space where everyone's younger than you and more capable than you, and that you've been off the horse for a long time and trying to get back on it feels a little directionless. I would say you have much more power than you know, and I've played the shame game, right? Like I call myself a college dropout, but I actually mean it in a kind of empowering way. Like, yeah, I dropped out. I had to. I didn't have a choice. Like, I own that part of my history. It's part of how I became who I am. And I think that it's really hard to grapple with the fact that you're not in a position in your life where you thought you should have been before. To say, I feel like I've been delayed 6 years, I've been delayed 10 years. Like, I really relate to that. And a lot of people in my program relate to that. The other ADAs relate to that because we're all here in this program, literally that's designed to call us out and say, you didn't finish, come back and finish. And we struggle with that. We struggle with that identity here and up with a bunch of traditional students. We're surrounded by 1,300 traditional students. There's only 100 of us ever given, give or take. And I would say that you definitely are doing the right thing by trying. Like, hell yeah, props to you for even being here like right now and trying. Like, congratulations. And that's the start of figuring it out. Because like when I came to OCC, I hadn't had my shit figured out. It sounds like I kind of did. Like, I had ideas, but I didn't know what to do. Like, I didn't know what classes to take or what was going to happen after OCC. The best thing you can do is say, I'm putting myself in a position of opportunity right now as a non-traditional student, and I'm going to keep doing that because that will be your success. And like I was saying about half raising my hand in class with Chris Stewart being like, do you want me to answer this one? Like, just be that guy. Like, you have knowledge, you have experience and wisdom, and you have so much power in the fact that you've lived a life outside of school, and that's an advantage to you. Like, you know what it takes to survive within somewhat political relationships. Like, when you're 18, you just don't understand that your professor is looking at you with expectations in a certain way. Sometimes you do, but a lot of times you don't. And I think as an adult returning to school, you have a lot more power than you know. And if you just can peel away some of those layers of shame, you'll be able to really tap into it.
Wow, what a powerful message. I think I'm going to put that on a little thumb drive and hand it out to returning students, because that sentiment of, I feel like I've wasted my time, I don't belong, I see that every day.
Yeah.
And like you said it so well, right? You have more power than you think you do, and just start somewhere.
Right.
I want to thank you again, McKenzie, for taking the time to share your incredible story with us. And I'm going to keep up with you. I'll check in with you every now and then because I want to see what happens. I want to see if you get that, what happens after that internship, if you get to work at the rare native species place in the next year. I'm excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, really.
Oh, no, thank you for taking the time out of your day and talking to us and our students. Now, for those of you watching this as a recording on YouTube, there is a link for feedback below. If you want to just let us know what you liked so that we can make improvements based on your feedback. Our next seminar, we will be welcoming Raven Baxter, also known as Raven the Science Maven, on March 17th. Raven is a molecular scientist, educator, and most interestingly of all, the queen of science rap. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you back on March 17th at 12:30. Bye-bye.